Welcome everyone to our first webinar of our series on marketing lessons from a data scientist. My name is Drew Lanenga. I'm with Lytics, and I've been with Lytics for about 6.5 years, working in data science, tackling data science problems, and working with marketers and their data. So we'll go through a couple of high-level takeaways as we're getting our series started on the value of data and focusing on the right data, right? Because a lot of times in our workflows, the question isn't whether we have enough data, the question is if we have the right data. So in our series, we will start off here with a hard truth. And that truth is that not all data are created equal. So if we consider marketing, right, as a craft from its origins in direct mail and legacy processes and systems, we've always been focused on driving outcomes. Today, our outcomes are very tangible, right? We can capture registration, purchase events, upsell, churn, these kinds of very discrete processes and the outcomes we can measure. Along with all of that data, we have historically had access to demographic data. We've built personas, and we've focused our marketing a lot of times on those personas, right? But today's marketers have access to much more sophisticated data and much more sophisticated models. So we don't need to just rely on those that demographic data. We can really focus on the signal driving a lot of these behaviors. And as we're looking at predicting what's driving those behaviors, we see that through internal analysis done by Lytics, that over 92% of the variability in those outcomes is explained through activity signals. In Lytics, we measure those through affinity, we measure those through behavioral scores, and then the rest of it can be measured, can be predicted through these other signals. So as we're considering all of the signals that we have, all of the data that we have, the question is focusing on the right signals and making sure that we're focusing on getting the right data into our data platform. So step one of that process is to start with what you have, right? In today's ecosystem, in today's landscape, there is data that's more readily available than other data, right? So we want to focus on the low-hanging fruit before we focus on the high-hanging fruit, just from a resource allocation perspective. All of the data that we have in all of our workflows is to a varying degree. Web, if we look at mail systems, are developed in a way such that the data is pretty interchangeable from platform to platform, and you can sync your email tool to your commerce platform, and that synchronization is very, very powerful. So let's rely on that. Let's focus first on the low-hanging fruit before we start thinking about the custom data sources and the custom data that we might need to bring in from a data warehouse, from other tools that might be harder to get or might involve custom mapping. So the idea then with these activation platforms like a customer data platform is that if you've recreated a data lake inside of a customer data platform, you've made a terrible mistake, right? That you're focusing more on data for data's sake rather than the data that's going to help drive the outcomes that you as a marketer are trying to drive. So leads us to our third lesson today, which is to never decouple data tasks from use cases. So a lot of pitfalls that I've seen over the past 6.5 years are customers focusing on getting all the data in the right place and then thinking about what they're going to do with it. So they say, I'm going to get this data from this legacy system, or I'll bring it in, or I've got these custom data sources and these custom mappings. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it, but once I get all the data together, then I'll know. Then I might have an epiphany of what I might actually want to do. And that's kind of a backwards way to think about it, especially, again, getting back to the fact that we are all strapped for time and resources. So the question you need to think about then is, if I did have that data, what would I do with it? And to answer that question, right before you get started, I would align most data tasks that marketers deal with in kind of three different categories. One is mapping, and this kind of includes what are traditional ETL-based or extraction, transformation, and loading tasks, right? It's just bringing in data, mapping it, and making sure it's uniformly represented. And this is the drudgery, kind of the drudgery tasks. The fun things get more into prediction, creating models and pipelines for specific models against specific users, or analysis and reporting use cases, right? Extracting information to be able to use data to inform business practices. Often that isn't necessarily compatible with execution. Often it'll inform more of a strategy, right, than an actual execution of a particular campaign. But the key is to identify what data task, right, I need to execute a particular use case that I have. So as we're talking about digital transformation, as we're talking about really executing and really personalizing on what today's customers are demanding, the question is, what data do I need to get that done, rather than focusing on it kind of from the other way around. If tasks don't align with use cases, nobody succeeds, right? The people performing that mapping task, they're not happy that they just wasted their time. You're not happy that it's delayed your timeline, and it causes friction and problems. So that's where we'll end today with just some high-level learnings. So not all data are created equal. That being the case, we need to start with what we have. And then for the things that we don't have, make sure that we never decouple our data tasks from our use cases. So thanks for being around today, starting this webinar series with us. We hope you'll follow and tune into our next sessions on more marketing lessons from data scientists.